It's my pleasure now to introduce our guest speaker, a gentleman who is very well known in town for his service to the community and for his many, many years as principals of all of our children. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you at this time my friend, Dick OShaughnessy.
Okay, good evening to all, and thank you. It's a rainy evening, it's a damp evening, but you're all here, brave souls, to enjoy a great evening of music and a Christmas tree lighting. A big thank you again to the Lions Club. They have put this together. It takes a lot of organization, a lot of commitment, and a lot of many people working very hard to make this happen. So how about a round of applause for them? Now tonight is tonight to celebrate Christmas stories. And everyone has a favorite story, and I was asked to narrate my favorite story. And tonight, as I give this little talk, I'm going to ask you if I could have a little bit of audience participation, so maybe you'll help me at that point. Now, I do like the story of It's a Wonderful Life, and that's a story of George Bailey. George Bailey was from Bedford Falls, and he was a banker, but he put the community, he put his friends, he put his neighbors ahead of avarice and greed. Now, another story I like is a Christmas story. We all see that on Christmas Day. It runs 24 hours. There's Ralphie. Who can't love Ralphie and the Parker family and chasing the dogs and the whole story? You got to love Christmas Story. But tonight, I would like to talk about my favorite Christmas story. And this is a true story that takes place, or took place, 100 years ago in France during the early years, or the first year of World War I. Now, the kings and the generals of Europe stumbled and bumbled themselves into this war. In the end, 17 million soldiers and civilians lost their lives. This war was fought by young men in their teens and in their 20s. Most had no idea of what they were fighting for. This war began in August, and most thought that by Christmas time it would be over. It wasn't to be. The battlefield tactics of the 19th century were with bayonet and cavalry charges ran up against the 20th century. Weapons of machine guns, gas attacks, and barbed wire. By December, there was a stalemate between the Germans and the British on a battlefield that became known as the Western Front. The soldiers of both armies were bogged down in muddy trenches that were miles long. These trenches were separated by a distance of only 100 yards. The space between them was known as no man's land. But the generals were determined to fight battles the old-fashioned way. Each day at dawn, young soldiers from one side would fix their bayonets. When a whistle sounded, they would climb out of their trenches and start running across a field filled with barbed wire, mines, and poison gas. Halfway across the field, they would be met by the murderous fire of the machine guns. Hundreds would die. There'd be a lull as the soldiers came out to pick up their dead and their wounded. And then the other side, they would do the same in the same insane way. That was the misery of Christmas Eve night in France in 1914. It was cold and damp. There were few lights except for the countless stars over the soldiers' heads. The soldiers laid on cold ground, exhausted, hungry, and fearful. Then from the German side came the sound of harmonica. And then from the German side came the sound of young men singing, "O come all ye faithful," in German. At this point, would you join me? O come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Then a pause. And then from 100 yards away in the other trench came the same song, but then this time singing in English. So repeat. Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. The two armies, one German, the other British, sang a Christmas carol that both knew and both loved. A carol symbolizing peace and love. Now, when sun came up the next day on Christmas Day, there would be no fighting. Young men from both sides came out of their trenches and met in the middle of no man's land. They swapped gifts of cookies and cakes that had been sent to them by their mothers back home in Germany and in England. From one of the trenches came a ball, and soon they were playing a game that they both loved, a universal game of soccer. They laughed and they joked and they enjoyed a wonderful day without killing and dying. That night, they returned to their trenches, and the next day the war would begin again. But on that Christmas Day in 1914, both sides forgot their differences. They found they were more alike than non-alike. They came together as human beings, sharing the same planet, the same God, the same love of family, the same music and Christmas carols with their message of peace on earth and goodwill to men. There is much conflict in the world today, and what's happening right now in San Bernardino, California is just tragic and deeply saddening. As citizens of this earth, maybe we someday can learn what these young men learned in the trenches 100 years ago. That we are all human beings sharing the same air and the same planet. And that no matter when or where, the birth of a little baby is a moment of greatest joy and happiness in all of mankind. It brings peace and love to families and communities everywhere. We can learn from little children. I will end with a quote from Martin Richard, the little boy killed in the Boston Marathon bombing. No more hurting people. Peace. Thank you.